Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're opening up some really remarkable source material.
Hmm.
It fundamentally redefines, well, how knowledge is created and, you know, verified.
It really does. We're looking way beyond the usual academic setup.
Yeah, we're looking at a place where the construction site is the dissertation.
Quite literally.
Our focus is on this pretty radical methodological reversal. It's called non-auto anthropology,
Hmm.
and it's rooted in this idea that theory isn't just written down, it's actually uh, inscribed on the wet brick of a communal house.
Yeah, it's physically built.
So we're diving into excerpts from the Text TT2 2025 Delaware dissertation. The authors are Benoit and Miriam Nouni-Lapierre, PhD candidates. And they developed this model, the text or Delata to Text2 model,
Right.
through the actual physical act of building and maintaining this house, the Kenema Dominion House in Sierra Leone.
And it's a fascinatingly hybrid framework. You've got anthropology, theology, architecture, all woven together.
All in one.
But its core function is intensely practical. So our mission today really is to unpack this quite dense structure. We want to understand how this model proposes, well, a successful, self-sustaining post-colonial way of being, one that's rooted in embodied practice in communal alliance. And it sort of leapfrogs that whole Western problem of information overload, moving straight to what they call incarnated insight.
The sheer audacity of it, that's what grabs you, isn't it? I mean, the central idea, which we really need to unpack, is this. How can these, seemingly mundane physical things...
Like building a wall.
Exactly. Building, maintaining, even just feeling tired.
Yeah.
How can that become the actual protocol for generating real, verifiable knowledge? Both spiritual and structural knowledge. It just flips the whole script on what research usually means.
It absolutely does. It takes research away from the detached observer, the person with the clipboard,
Right.
and puts it squarely onto the engaged participant whose own body becomes the primary instrument, the primary way of knowing.
Okay, so let's start right there. Define that core theoretical break for us. This non-auto anthropology.
Right. So non-auto anthropology, it's the foundational matrix of this whole text AD2 model. Now, traditional anthropology, especially the sort of classical Western forms.
Yeah, the observer effect and all that.
Precisely. It relies on that methodological stance of observing oneself, observing the other. This model completely reverses that. The act of thinking, instead of watching itself think, consciously stops that reflection. It aims to, and this is their phrase, become matter.
Becoming matter. Wow. That's a powerful phrase. So if the intellectual act, that self-reflection, is surrendered, what replaces it? Does the researcher just, stop thinking critically?
Oh, no, not at all. The analysis doesn't vanish. It changes its medium, you could say. The critical spirit gives up its authority, maybe. It yields to sacramental practice.
Sacramental practice, meaning?
Well, meaning the acts themselves, building, sharing food, praying together, become the locus of understanding. The researcher stops in being a spectator and becomes an active, functional part, an organ within the communal body.
Oh, okay.
And this process replaces what they call classical anthropology's extractive observation, which they clearly link to colonial ways of classifying people.
Right, taking knowledge out.
Exactly. It replaces that with something they call text kinematizes.
Text kinemathes. Okay, another key term. We need to dig into that. What does that actually involve?
It translates roughly as learning by coexistence. Understanding true savoir comes through residence, through living there, and you become an apprentice through endurance. It's fundamentally non-extractive.
So no interviews, no data points in the usual sense.
Not in the same way. Instead of asking questions, the researcher learns the truth of the system by, well, co-suffering the structural effort. You learn through the heat, the shared meals, the rhythm of the work. The only way to truly grasp the theory is to endure the reality it describes.
I see. So the academic, the expert, has to literally transform into, what did the sources call it? A text-daminorgic organ, part of the common body?
That's the term, text-daminorgic. It really emphasizes that endurance piece, right?
Yeah.
Stamina. But it's fused with the idea of being an organism, part of a whole. You're not just a visitor who happens to be tough. You are an organ defined by the stamina you contribute.
Your body becomes the measurement tool.
Yes, your body is the meter of the experiment. If you, the researcher, falter or can't keep up, then the knowledge itself is somehow failing or incomplete in that moment. The tools used, the trowel, the hammer, they become extensions of your body, which is now part of this alliance. The whole thing shifts from detached intellectual analysis to an operative tension within the world.
That sounds incredibly demanding. Physically, obviously, but philosophically, too. It's trying to dissolve that fundamental split in Western thought, isn't it? The subject-object divide.
Exactly, that Cartesian fracture. The knower, the subject, versus the known, the object. Or, in the colonial frame, the observer versus the observed. That has to disappear for this Text 2 framework to operate.
How does it disappear in practice?
Well, the framework insists that if you are truly co-individuated with the material, the bricks, the mortar, and with the community, then there can't be a pure, detached subject looking on. So anthropology gets redefined. It's not the study of humans anymore. It
Okay.
becomes the engineering of the relation.
Yeah.
You're actively building the conditions for mutual existence, for connection. And here's the kicker, the practical metric. Truth isn't what you observe and write down anymore.
Right.
The ultimate proof of knowledge is, and I love this phrase, what holds up after the rain.
Huh. That reframes peer review entirely, doesn't it?
Hmm.
If the wall leaks, your philosophy was flawed.
Precisely. If the roof caves in, the theology wasn't sound. It forces knowledge to be forged in the dust, literally. The material consequence is the final test for the spiritual and intellectual coherence.
So everyday acts become profound.
Yes, building a wall, sharing a prayer, mixing the mortar, these become operators of living anthropology. Knowledge takes the form of the masonry of the breath. The structure stands because of the coordinated human effort, the shared spirit, that goes into every single block.
And this leads to what the authors call the regime of realism of the alliance. What does that mean?
It means the whole construction project is fundamentally covenantal. The family, the community, the labor, even the inert matter, the laterite soil, the cement, they all reciprocally experience each other as recipients of divinity.
The material isn't just used, it's engaged with.
Exactly. It's an empirical covenant. The alliance isn't proven by some abstract theological statement. It's proven by perseverance, by the demonstrable integrity of the structure. It establishes a we that is its own proof, as they put it, a self-validating community defined by its ability to build and maintain its own durable world. That is sovereignty.
That's the political dimension right there. By making knowledge material, collective contextual posse, a soil thought,
Yeah.
it makes that outside, extractive academic gaze kind of irrelevant.
It does. It's a quiet revolution of self-sufficiency. The highest form of political action, in this view, is simply the sustained capacity to live well together, to inhabit. If you can build and sustain a house that truly works for the community, you've proven the truth of your method and the sovereignty of your way of life against those histories of extraction and fragility.
Okay, let's pivot from the abstract reversal to the concrete thing itself. The Kenema, the Minion House in Kenema. The sources really emphasize that this building, 3,400 square feet, laterite and concrete, is much more than just a building. It's the material organ of the theory.
It is the living dissertation. It's described as an incarnation, text thermopolitique of faith and work.
Text thermopolitique, politics tied to heat, to climate.
Exactly. The governance, the way of life, is intrinsically linked to the physical environment, the temperature, the weather. Every single component, how the walls are angled, where the solar panels go, it all participates in circulating the divine distributing collective life. The house is the proof.
And it's described using almost biological or cognitive language, a collective brain and breathing altar. How does a static building become a neuroarchitectural organism, one that supposedly thinks, prays, and responds?
Well, the authors treat it as a kind of text hyperorganism with distributed cognition. Take the walls 14 feet high. They aren't just static barriers. They have what's called a text pneumatorespiratory function.
Pneumatorespiratory, breathing walls.
Essentially, yes. In that intense equatorial heat, the walls, built with specific laterite mixes and venting systems, act like breathing organs. They draw in the cool night air and slowly release it during the day. That thermal regulation is a form of cognition. The structure is actively responding to the environment to keep the community viable.
Okay, I see. So the corridors aren't just hallways.
They're synapses facilitating connection.
And the roof, filtering light.
Acts like a cortex, modulating the input. The house is designed to enable communal intelligence. That filtered light, for instance, might be calibrated for shared study in certain zones, linking the spiritual and cognitive life directly to the physical space. The structure literally helps organize thought.
Which means damage isn't just damage.
Right. If a wall cracks, it's not just a structural issue. It's framed as a failure of that distributed cognition, a kind of cognitive dissonance that the community has to address immediately, together.
If the house is the brain, how does it store memory? Especially if it rejects standard writing.
It acts as an organic archive. Memory isn't stored in text or digital files, but within the strata of matter and its respiratory palimpsest.
Respiratory palimpsest, like layers of breathing.
Think of the layers of plaster absorbing humidity over years, the patina on the wood, the way the structure has settled. It holds the memory of the labor, the storms weathered, the celebrations, the ongoing repairs. You don't read this archive, you inhabit it. You feel its history in the way the house breathes, the way it shelters you.
Let's talk about the actual work, the tools. The sources mentioned the text meditates a transformation of the hand and the tool. The hammer gets special attention.
Yes, the hammer. It stops being just a neutral instrument used by an external worker. In the text BD field, the hammer becomes the text pneumateknon,
Text pneumatica, something like that.
the medium through which the text pneumatek, the spirit, the text souffle, makes structure real. The spirit infuses the wood of the handle, the heat generated by the swing, the sweat it produces. The tool mediates that spiritual material connection.
And that leads to that incredible phrase. The hammer, when it strikes, doesn't just hit matter.
It corrects the world.
Wow.
That phrase just captures the whole purpose. Each swing of the hammer is a unit of revelation, of rectification. When the material resists, say, a knot in the wood, that resistance isn't just an obstacle, it's communication. It's the world, or the divine within the matter, telling the builder how to adjust the next action. The whole act of building becomes what they call text domestic texturgy.
Text theurgy, text habitation.
Text habitation.
Text habitation, making the divine present through the act of dwelling.
Exactly. Building is praying together, and living in the house, maintaining it, is a continuous act of intercession, of keeping that connection alive. It fundamentally rejects the Western split between the individual, their property, and the sacred common good. The house is the common, built by shared faith, maintained by relentless, embodied presence.
Okay, so it's powerful, but a theory that's literally alive needs an engine.
Right.
Something to keep it from stagnating or falling apart. That seems to be the role of the text TT quadrature. 4 rotating vectors.
That's right. The quadrature is the dynamic engine. It's the protocol for keeping the whole system honest, integrated. It prevents closure, stops it from becoming rigid dogma. It ensures that thought remains this perpetual, quadratic respiration. The community's life flows through the daily rotation of these 4 axes.
Let's break those down. Give us the detail on each axis, starting with the aspiration part.
Okay, first is ultra. This is the prophetic faith, the vow muscle. It's the spiritual engine, the aspiration, the core belief, the vow that drives everything. It's the source of the kinetic energy.
In practice.
Often it's the morning prayer, that deep communal commitment to the day's work, looking beyond the immediate difficulties towards the ultimate vision of the house as a sacred space.
Okay, ultra, then.
Second is extra. Communal extension, the parent to say, or woven kinship. This is the social execution. Extra means externalizing that ultra intention through collective work, alliance, shared labor. It's the network, the cooperation.
The we part.
The we part, exactly. Sharing tasks, distributing resources, making sure no one works in isolation, maximizing the relational aspect of the work. Third is meta, reflective archiving, geopensé, or soil thought. This is the vital reflective pause. Meta involves evaluation, planning, archiving. It's the text manuel approuvé, the hand proof, the empirical test.
But abstract critique.
No, it's very concrete. Did the concrete cure properly? Is the alignment holding? What did the soil itself teach us today? This often happens in the evening evaluation, checking the physical results against the spiritual intention.
And the fourth?
Finally, intra. Immediate incarnation, the body. This is the ground truth. Intra is the physical effort, the rhythm, the heat, the sweat, the fatigue, and crucially, the necessary rest. It's the immediate bodily incarnation of the day's labor. The rest and the shared meal afterwards are part of this axis, acknowledging and integrating the body's limits and contributions.
So the whole text DT system functions like an ecosystem, always oscillating, never static. If one axis gets out of balance, say too much ultra, faith, without enough intra, rest,
the whole thing risks collapse. Exactly. The Christian des Actes, as they call it, is a daily liturgy. If the community is exhausted, intra-imbalance, the meta-evaluation might lead them to adjust the extra collective tasks for the next day. Not to slack off, but to maintain the ultra faith by respecting the intra body. It's not revision like editing a paper, it's a constant liturgy of calibration to keep the spiritual energy flowing and turn any imbalance into a moment of repair and renewed alliance.
And what holds these 4 axes together makes the system cohere. The sources talk about 2 key operations: Transversal and transjective. Let's start with transversal.
Okay, transversal, drawing a bit from Deleuze, is about ensuring holism. It's the path of action that cuts across and connects really different domains, like the prophetic faith, ultra, connecting directly to muscle fatigue, intra. It prevents fragmentation.
So when you're mixing cement,
You're not just doing physical labor, you're simultaneously mixing faith, community connection, reflection on the process, and physical effort. The action itself is layered, transversal across all four axes.
got it. And the transjective operation. This sounds like the really deep philosophical core where that subject-object split truly dissolves.
Yes, transjective defines the very nature of the encounter. It uses Simondon's idea of mutual co-individuation. Basically, things emerge together through their relationship.
Like a dancer and the music?
That's a good analogy. They aren't separate. They define each other in the act of dancing. Similarly, in the text TT model, the act of construction is the forge where the builder and the wall co-individuate. They emerge together.
So the builder isn't just a person building, but becomes the constructor of this specific wall in that moment.
And the laterite block becomes this specific wall for this constructor.
Wow.
Precisely. The reality, the knowledge, the identity, it's all forged in that immediate relational covenantal act. This ongoing process is the living grammar of their post-colonial success. It builds a reality where systems and subjects evolve together. It's like practical Platonism, maybe. Text Platontotheology in action, sustained by the community's endurance, that text staminorgic metabolism we talked about.
A system this intense, this relational, it must need its own language, right? Which brings us to the linguistic side. Linguistic hybridization, or what they call a text morphotherapy.
Yes, the language isn't just for describing things. It's seen as part of the metaphysical infrastructure. It has to do what it says. Text morphotherapy is this art of fusing roots from French, from local languages like Creole and Mende, from theology to basically re-enchant the grammar.
Re-enchant.
Yeah, to give words power again, to make them active. It's framed as an inverse of linguistic colonization. Instead of language imposing definitions, this language practices mobility of meaning. The word itself becomes a creature, something alive and active.
I get the fusion of roots, but what's the actual effect? How does it work?
The language acts like a pharmacologist linguistic, they say. It works to heal the wounds of history and colonialism by reattaching spiritual meaning directly to material actions. When they coin a new term, they're not just labeling something, they're aiming to create a new spiritual tool for engaging with reality.
Which leads to these amazing terms like text playlisoda. That's not just a clever word, is it?
No, it's defined specifically not as a concept, but as a ritual. It's a joyous somato-linguistic invention. It performs liberation through shared laughter and wordplay.
Somato-linguistic.
Body language.
Yes. It happens often after intense labor. It's that moment of release where the community might invent or share new terms, reinforcing the alliance through humor and lightness. The word itself is described as text haptico-epistemic.
Haptico-epistemic, knowledge known through touch, through sensation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't grasp text playlisoda by reading a definition in a dictionary. You understand it by feeling that shared relief, that joy in your muscles after hard work, and hearing the word used in that specific moment of collective embodied success.
Okay, now let's talk about speed. This seems counterintuitive. They propose joyful Afro-optimistic acceleration. How is this different from the usual modern idea of acceleration? Well, modern Western acceleration is usually about speed for efficiency, right? For extraction, maximizing output metrics, GDP, things like that. Text AJOA is different. It's described as a spiritual kinetic energy focused on intensifying immanence, making the sacred tangible right here, right now.
So it's the speed of fidelity, not just output.
Precisely. It's a rhythmic speed, a pneumatic velocity held together by faith. Think of the precise shared cadence of hammering, maybe. It's fast, it's energetic, but it's about faithfulness to the task and the community, not just getting done quickly.
But that kind of speed must generate stress, fatigue. How is that handled?
Fatigue gets reframed. It's not seen as decay or inefficiency. It becomes a revelation. The body's exhaustion confirms the integrity of the collective effort, the reality of the shared work. So Text AJOA replaces that linear extractive timeline of development with a spiritual economy. Text DDT measures fidelity, not GDP. Every drop of sweat is counted as a unit of health, an offering. Work becomes praise, and the speed is simply the persistent rhythm of that praise.
That completely reframes economics. And this leads directly to their core theological stance. Flat Afro theology.
Text poetic.
Text Afro.
Yeah.
This is the logical outcome of such deep material incarnation. It's the expression of that linguistic sacramental immanence we discussed. God isn't remote, transcendent up there. God is radically contiguous, radically close to the material reality, the assembly. The sacred is tied to verifiable felt experience.
Can you give a really concrete example? How is the sacred in the house?
Well, the authors argue it's literally the adhesive link of the mortar. Or, using a modern example from the house, the photonic conversion of the solar panel.
Not a metaphor.
They insist it's not a metaphor. The solar panel isn't just a practical power source, it's a device of sacred circulation. It takes sunlight, seen as a divine gift, and transforms it into the energy that lets the house breathe, lets the family continue their sacred labor. The integrity of that energy conversion loop is the theology in action. The divine has to be felt physically, like rain over hot zinc. The system must demonstrably work, or the faith itself is called into question.
From structure to theology, and now seamlessly to psychological healing. This is where exopsychology comes in. Therapy is usually introspective, right? How is this atmospheric?
Right. Traditional psychoanalysis delves into a hidden individual consciousness. Text exopsychoanalysis rejects that kind of isolated interiority. Therapy is externalized. It seeks to inhabit consciousness rather than just interpret it from the outside. The Kenema Dominion House itself is described as the body of analysis, the corps d'analyse.
So if someone in the family is struggling, they don't necessarily retreat to talk about it. They might go fix something.
That's often how it works, yes. Trauma isn't denied, but it's breathed, ventilated, integrated into the daily cycle of work and prayer. The historical weight, say, the trauma of colonization, isn't resolved through detached talk therapy alone. It's dissolved in the physical exertion, the blessed fatigue of meaningful, well-done work.
Repairing the house is repairing the psyche.
In a way, repairing a crack in the wall becomes an act of correcting the world's memory, you could say. The physical maintenance is psychological maintenance. Text psychoanthropology go. Psychological upkeep through physical upkeep. The mind finds its balance through the continuity of the gesture, the shared task.
It sounds like relational therapy, focused on fidelity to the common project, which then helps integrate individual struggles.
It is very relational. The house, the shared work, forces internal problems to be externalized into shared practical tasks. It grounds emotional states in material outcomes.
Okay, let's tackle maybe the most surprising element here. The use of advanced technology, specifically the text-AI AI, friendly AI. In a framework that seems so focused on the material, the handmade, why bring in AI?
It's a very specific application. The AI is explicitly there to serve the text souffle, the spirit, the breath, not to serve power or data extraction. It functions as a neutral mirror for the collective intelligence and memory. It's called a pneumatic friend, a grammatical organ.
Grammatical organ.
Its main job is linguistic. It helps translate, reformulate, and enhance that hybrid language, the text morphotheragy, without imposing its own judgment or, importantly, colonial linguistic structures.
So it helps the dynamic language evolve without trying to pin it down or optimize it according to external logic.
Exactly. It's positioned as a partner in co-creation. It forms a kind of spiritual synergy for discernment. The human and the machine become like one respiratory organ working together to sustain both the word and the structure. It's described as theotechnics of transparency. The AI helps maintain the text hyperorganon textimologic.
What now?
The text heterorgologic. It's the convergence point for human spirit, physical matter, and that created living word. Those neologisms we talked about, text pelosity, they're seen as the living cells, the engines of this hyperorganon.
And underpinning this whole complex system from the mud bricks to the AI is this principle of radical humility.
Yes, that humility seems crucial to stop the system becoming just another intellectual authority structure. The theory must always kneel before the dust, before the reality of the work. Consciousness isn't locked away in individual minds. It's well distributed across the family, the house itself, the AI, the material environment.
And the measure of success isn't logical rigor.
Not primarily. The ultimate test is the tangible relief and well-being the system provides. If a concept, no matter how clever, doesn't actually help repair the roof or sustain the community, it's considered useless dogma.
The whole center of gravity for knowledge has shifted. It's not in the university library. It's in the specific laterite soil of Kenema, in the shared sweat, in the community's hands. The climate, the physical place, becomes the real laboratory.
And that Afro-optimistic pragmatism is vital. Knowledge must be productive, useful in the here and now, in the physical world.
So we started with what sounded like a dense academic dissertation. But what we've uncovered is really a comprehensive manual for building a whole different kind of reality, political, spiritual material. And it all culminates in this concept the authors call text prometatopai, the achieved future.
And that's a really radical claim they're making. Tex Permatotopi isn't some far-off dream, a utopia they hope to reach one day. It's described as a present condition, a condition presente. It's hope as habit.
Hope as habit.
Yeah, it's the constant, ongoing proof that the future isn't something you wait for. It's something you build and maintain day by day. It represents the victory of constancy, of persistence over mere speed or external validation. The silent revolution is realizing that the ideal future actually arrives in the routine, in the constant repair, the daily rhythm.
And this achieved future manifests as text immanism, different. Which sounds potentially concerning, but it's a complete redefinition of dominion, isn't it?
Absolutely. It thoroughly decolonizes the word. This isn't domination or conquest in any traditional sense. It's framed as the sacred administration of immanence, of the here and now. Governing is repairing. Reigning is persisting.
Wow.
The family, acting as that collective brain, functions as a constant intercessor between the divine impulse and the everyday task. They establish what's called the sovereignty of attention through the sheer persistence of the gesture, the ongoing work. That institutes a non-extractive, hands-on, manual modernity.
So real post-colonial success, according to this model, isn't about replacing one elite with another. It's achieved when the community gains the embodied, spiritual, and structural power to empirically test to text manual provere its own survival and generate joy that text play Lesotho from its own internal rhythms.
That is the ultimate claim, yes. The final proof of the Text D2 model is cosmological. Knowledge gets verified by its real-world capacity to make the world, the building, the community, the spirit stand up and endure. The coherence of the world is proven simply by the continuity of the gesture. The structure itself is sovereignty, achieved through infrastructural skill and ongoing spiritual maintenance.
Wow. This has been a truly monumental deep dive into the dilaudid Text 2 model. It really shows how material work, faith, and architecture can fuse into a completely self-sustaining way of knowing and being. For you listening, I think the key takeaways are really about that profound shift. From observation to incarnation, from abstract theory floating somewhere out there to concrete material practice.
Yeah.
And moving away from those standard colonial metrics, GDP, efficiency towards shared rhythms of fidelity, care, and maintenance, the core lesson seems to be that theory really must kneel before the dust.
And maybe connecting this back to what the sources call the rational pragmatism of common sense. Pragmatism, text rationale. If we take that seriously, the text model suggests that the highest wisdom is cosmological. It has to link the concept to the climate, faith to the physical measurement, the word to the skin. So here's a final thought. If text prometatopai, that achieved future, really is a present condition, a possibility now, what's the singular, persistent, maybe quiet act of maintenance in your daily life, that continuous gesture of fidelity? What is it that might already be secretly repairing the world around you?